Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Mann, and I'm the Director of Programs with A Time to Heal. Like Brenda said, we just wanted to thank our title sponsor, Nebraska Cancer Specialists. They sponsor each of our monthly educational webinars, our Create Your Best Life events. And so if you want more information about them, you can visit www.nebraskacancer.com. Joining us today, we have Becky, Emalee, and Taylor. They are three young adult survivors of rare and aggressive cancers, warrior women who are learning to thrive and are passionate about supporting others. They created Love Blackbird, a blog for cancer patients, and also those who love someone going through it. They talk about life, cancer, love, hardship, and triumphs. Welcome, ladies.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks. We're excited to be here. Okay, so we'll start. I guess my name's first, so I'll begin talking. My name is Taylor Cochran. I was diagnosed in 2017 with small cell ovarian cancer, which is actually a pediatric cancer, and it's very rare and very aggressive. I was 33 at the time, and I had a 3-year-old son and a 7-month-old daughter. I found my cancer, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, partially because I have amazing doctors that listened to me when I said something was up after having a baby and not just kind of brushing it off as postpartum, whatever. But I also found it because, I was listening to my body. And I think that was a big theme for me all the way through treatment. So like I said, we'll touch on that a little bit more. But my treatment itself consisted of 6 rounds of a 6-drug chemotherapy regimen first. So I would go into the hospital for 3 days at a time and get a full 3 days of chemo. And then I would go home, rest, and then go back in 3 to 4 weeks, depending on where my counts were, for another round. I did that, like I said, for 6 sessions. And then after that, I actually did a stem cell transplant, high dose chemo with stem cell rescue, I think is the technical name. And that was pretty unusual, particularly for an ovarian cancer. But since mine was so weird and fun and exciting, I got to do a stem cell transplant. So that involved 8 days of high dose chemo, followed by getting my stem cells back. And there's a whole process that you do before the whole thing kicks off to get those stem cells and keep them frozen. And then after that, I was in the hospital for about another 3.5 weeks or so recovering. And then I got to go home after that. And ever since, I have just been taking care of my body, taking care of my family, and trying to find whatever this life was going to look like after this incredibly disruptive and crappy and also just life-changing event. So I actually just had this August, my 5th stem cell birthday. They call it a birthday because they kind of kill you a little bit with the chemo and then they bring you back with your stem cells. So you get a rebirth day. And so while my technical remission, like 5-year remission date won't be until December 4th, because of the way that transplant dates and stuff work, I still celebrated that 5-year milestone as a really big milestone. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be here talking to you all. Being a young person going through cancer is just a whole nother animal. When you are 30 years or more younger than anyone else in the room, there's so much that goes on. So I feel very lucky, obviously, to be here, and really lucky to be able to talk about this and share our stories and hopefully provide some help, provide some community around this whole thing. It's a big thing to go through. So thanks for having us, and we're super excited to talk with you all. Emalee, I think that means you're next because your name's on there.
Sounds good. Nice to meet you, everybody. Thanks for joining. I know it's a Saturday morning, so we're so glad you're here. A little bit about me, and Becky's so funny. I'm so nervous, and Becky, reminded me that we've done this a million times, but it's still never easy to think back into that mind space, right, of when you're diagnosed. So I can never remember the exact day, but I believe that I was diagnosed in January of 2017. At the time, I was 27. I was right out of law school I had just been out for 2 years. I had been newly married, so I'd been married for a year. And I'm an attorney as a Taylor, and so I just really started doing my, my career path as in-house counsel, and life was really good. And I was on a good path. And one evening I had a seizure out of the blue. I'm very healthy. I've always been very healthy. I've never had anything wrong. And I had a seizure. And at the time, I went ahead and went to the hospital, and I was convinced that I had a heart attack for whatever reason. And I remember them ripping my shirt off and putting all these pads on me. And they were like, "Ma'am, you have not had a heart attack." And luckily I was with someone that had convinced them that I had this seizure, because they didn't believe me at first. To be honest, they thought I was dieting and was passed out. And thank God that I had someone there to advocate for me. They did a CAT scan, and they did find a brain tumor. It was about the size of a grapefruit, so fairly large, very large. And so I was admitted that night. I started seizure medication, and I was in for surgery, I think by Tuesday or Wednesday. It all happened very, very fast. So I had a craniotomy right out of the gate. And frankly, I don't think any of us were prepared for what that looks like. After the craniotomy, I had to learn how to walk, talk, everything again. And as you can imagine, as someone at you have to be so attentive to detail, and cognitively, you've got to be sharp for this industry. And I lost those skills, and I lost a lot of that ability. So I did end up going to Madonna rehab, and I was there for several months, and I worked bit by bit every single day to get back to where I am today. And I'm not at 100%, but at least I have strategies and tools available to try to continue to move forward. At the time, I didn't, our surgeon convinced all us that it wasn't cancer, and boy, was he wrong. We got a call, and I did have a grade 2 astrocytoma. So brain cancer is graded just a little bit different from the other types of cancer. Essentially what that meant is that I have a cancer that is highly aggressive in the brain. The best course of treatment is to resect the tumor, do rounds of radiation and chemo. And I think the biggest thing is when folks look at me or they talk to me, they don't really see anything wrong. Like I look great, I feel great. But unfortunately, as my doctor, Dr. Shanka at UNMC will tell you, like, it's not a matter of if it comes back, it's a matter of when it will come back. So 99% of the time, this type of cancer comes back, and you do the same round of treatment again. So we did the surgery, and then I did 7 weeks of radiation treatment straight to the brain, and then I did 1 year of chemotherapy. And that's the best course of action as you can have with brain cancer. There really hasn't been a lot of yes, I love Dr. Shanka too, Rochelle. Thank you for saying that. So does Becky. We're all big fans.
I love Dr. Shanka too.
We're groupies.
We are all Dr. Shanka fans.
Yeah.
She wears cute outfits from Aunt though. Let's be
Yep.
legit.
Yeah, she's gorgeous and so smart and so nice, all of the things. And so I don't know. So I did all my treatment, and and we'll talk about this more later, but during the course of the treatment, fertility is really impacted by young survivors. So that's a kind of a trial that I had to go through. My husband and I ended up getting a divorce. So I also went through that, and I also ended up getting fired from my job for the amount of time that I was on medical leave. So frankly, it was really, really hard. There were a lot of pieces to my journey, I guess, that are very much cancer related, but also tangentially related that I've lived through. But that's really where I'm at, where I've been. I feel great. Things are good. I still go in for regular monitoring, as all 3 of us do. So there's always still that chance. And like, really, I'm just waiting at this point. I know that sounds really morbid, but I'm just waiting for statistically when this is potentially going to happen again. And otherwise, I am back working again. I have a lifelong little partner whom I love. We just bought a house together, and I sold all my stuff, and I chased my dream, and I live in Washington, D.C. now. So things have really changed, but I'm living, and that's the best you can do at this point. So we're so glad to have you guys. And we're very off the cuff. I told Kelly, we probably should have said this is above PG-13. We're all very, especially me, I don't have a filter anymore. So we'll always be very open and honest with you, and we definitely want this to be fun and interactive. So please ask questions along the way. Thank you for talking in the chat. We love that. But Becky, on over to you.
Hey guys, I'm Becky. I am the oldest of the three of the young cancer survivors. As Emily specifically makes me feel real old, but I was 34 when I was diagnosed, 42 now. And I was pregnant with our third kiddo. I was kind of in a really cranky, I hate the world space, because my husband's job with the railroad had just moved us up to Minneapolis during the fourth coldest winter of the like on record. And I was not with my friends, not with my family, and just cranky, but still the fittest of my life, running 5Ks and things like that. I'm a physical therapist, so I know the importance of exercise and nutrition and balancing all the things. My husband and I decided, hey, while it's cold in Minnesota and we have nothing else to do, let's try for our third baby. So I got pregnant and was working and sad that I was living in Minnesota. And just thought, started feeling crappy. I had a lot of GI issues. I was sleeping, like dropping my kids off at daycare, and was supposed to be studying for these boards or working as a physical therapist. And I was sleeping and lying to everyone like, oh, what a, eventful day I had. I thought it was just being pregnant with the third kiddo. But I kept getting progressively worse where I couldn't lay down, like anything laying flat. I felt like I had an elephant on my chest. But I so appreciate and so am, I so respect Taylor and Emily, who are such great advocates for themselves. I thought before this journey that I was an excellent advocate for myself. I'm, a little bit in the medical field. I know how important that is, but I'm also such a people pleaser. And so when I went to the ER the first through the fourth times, and they said, hey, you just have reflux from pregnant, suck it up, lady. I'm like, oh, you're right. And, I went on my merry way and just got down to eating basically nothing, oatmeal, and sleeping in a chair and thinking it was all pregnancy related. So finally went home back to Omaha for a weekend, cried to my mom, said if I had still had 6 more months of this pregnancy to go, I had no idea how I was going to make it. And randomly went back to the ER here and just had a random scan that happened to catch something suspicious. Because I had no cancer history in my family, nor me. Was pregnant. No one wanted to do a CT scan. They were like, oh yeah, there's fluid in your lung. No big deal. You probably just have some weird infection from my workplace at a nursing home. So IV antibiotics, and then they drained my lung, and still no results. So I ended up in the middle of my pregnancy having a thoracotomy, which is where they removed part of my lung and my diaphragm. I was 5 months pregnant with Ethan. My OB was the only one that kind of kept us all together. So I really do agree that there are the people in the medical field that you cling on to. Certain ones I have a best friend that works in oncology, and she helped me survive, because how was I going to get this baby to term? How was I still going to be here for these other 2 kiddos? I had a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So anyway, we packed up Minnesota. We moved. I never saw that house again. We moved in with my mom. My mom went from a single widow lady to a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, a NICU baby, and a husband that traveled, or a son-in-law who traveled all the time, and a cancer patient. So I had 2 rounds of chemo with Ethan still in my belly, and then we delivered him 5 weeks early. I then did a lot of chemo and a lot of radiation, and then was no evidence of disease, stage 3 synovial sarcoma for about 8 months. Unfortunately, just like Taylor and Emily, mine's aggressive as well, super rare. There's 30 subtypes, and sarcoma in itself is only 1% of all cancers, just a bad luck one. I've been in, this is the longest I've been, like no evidence, is 2 years now, but I've had about 8 relapses. So I know all the things about all the crazy things you can try and do, including clinical trials. I did 2 CAR T trials, which is basically a stem cell transplant with your own cells, but that they add a protein to your cells to help start fighting the cancer again. So I know about living out of state. For a clinical trial, I do all my treatment in St. Louis now because sarcoma is such a weird cancer. Dr. Shanka here helps me when she can. But I know a lot about seeking out other places that for second and third and fourth opinions. And I'm, 8 relapses and still here. My baby just turned 8 yesterday. So that's super exciting. I really honestly, never thought I'd see him reach kindergarten. So now he's a big second grader, and that's super amazing. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. No evidence of disease now, just scans every 3 months, and just kind of enjoying and living my life.
Becky, I don't know if you can see the chat, but somebody just put in there that they are 26 weeks pregnant and just started chemo. So she was just thanking you for sharing your story.
Yes, my heart goes to you. Basically the most terrifying thing ever. I don't know what kind of cancer you have, but basically they came to me and said, well, we have some studies that pregnant women were on certain chemos, mostly breast cancer patients. But there's some studies on rats, but obviously you can't do chemo with a pregnant woman. So we held our breath. We trusted in our physician. I really trusted in my OB. I saw a NICU specialist, or not a pediatric neonatal specialist that I loved. I got lots of fancy scans. I saw like 40 Ethans like every week. But really the best thing that my OBGYN said, who is now retired and 80, and sometimes you just need the guy that has been around the block. He's like, your baby comes first in your body. Like, so as long as you're standing upright, as long as your counts are going okay every week, they've checked whatever chemo you're on, that it's not going to cross through the placenta. He's going to get all of his nutrition, everything, and be just fine. You worry about yourself, getting the right nutrition, the right exercise, and doing what you have to do, and your baby will be just fine too. And I just needed someone to tell me that like, oh my gosh. And then, so 2 rounds, and then I delivered him 5 weeks early, and he was a 6-pounder. And, it was 2 weeks in the NICU just because he was a lazy eater. I'm a physical therapist, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's not walking. Oh, he's tiny. Oh, blah, blah, blah. His milestones, literally met every single milestone. I'm a physical therapist, and I had other physical therapists come check him because I was so nervous. And like, he's a perfectly average child with a short mom. So try to take a deep breath about that. He survived a 8-hour lung removal on my end. So take a deep breath and try to just take care of yourself. You'll get there. So this is me too. I get to talk. So real quick, I was on my second round of cancer. So I'd gotten through the first one. And like I said before, I was totally focused on Ethan. I was going to be one and done and beat this cancer and never move on with my life, never have to deal with it again. My husband, who is a big fixer, after I was done with that first round and I got diagnosed again, I just couldn't sleep. And I started having all the feelings after I was off treatment. Actually, after I was done with the first round, before I was diagnosed the second time. And he's calling the social workers and everybody at the med center. He's like, I need something to fix my wife who's crying all the time. And so I found a time to heal. And I had just gone back to work as a physical therapist full time. I had these 3 kids. We were living an hour away with my mom. I was exhausted, sleeping in my car during lunch and all the things. And I was like, ugh, I did not want one more thing in my life. But my husband took me kicking and screaming, and I've met some of my best friends through that program, the 12-week program with the Time to Heal, my best supporters. And then I think I was re-diagnosed or something, and then got through the second round. And then I got an email from a friend that was like, hey, Becky, I don't know how comfortable you feel with sharing your story, but there's this lawyer out there that I don't even know who she is, but she needs some support. She's diagnosed with an aggressive cancer, blah, blah, blah. And I had just been re-diagnosed. And so I was like, oh, love my work, but this isn't happening anyway. So let's leave at 3:00 because I'm falling asleep. And I went and visited Taylor while she was getting chemo in the hospital. This woman I had never met before. I was like, hey, and I really think, and I'm hoping this is why we are doing all of this, is that we want to help the gap of feeling so lonely as a young diagnosed cancer patient. I mean, I just felt like no one knew what I was going through. So I showed up on Taylor's hospital bed and I'm like, hi, I'm this weird lady, but I'm here if you need anything. And then we started going to a Time to Heal's support groups, and Emalee randomly showed up a couple months later and we're like, hey, you look kind of like you're in our age range, plus or minus 10 years. Come be our friend. And we just really got this little trio of us going along. And I think it's so important if you have somebody cling on to them that has any sort of experience with this journey, because they're the ones that are going to pick up your midnight phone calls and talk you off the crazy bus before a scan, and do all the things and say all the right things that that they know you need to hear. So that's the three of us.
I was going to say, I still remember getting the initial email from Becky being like, hi, I'm young and I have cancer too. Do you want to hang out? And just strangely enough, I was just like, yes, I really do. Like, you can come to my hospital. I'm just hanging out here right now. And so, the rest is history. It's finding other people that are, somewhat in your age range that, are going through something similar was the biggest thing for me in treatment. And so that's why this just means so much for us. So, and it's me on the screen. So we'll keep talking. So biggest outlets, best coping strategies. I put this picture on here because for me, finding a way to laugh about whatever was going on was, one of the top things that I could do. If I could just laugh, I'm sorry, I was crapping myself half of the time. That's embarrassing. That's gross. You're young, you're married, you have new babies, you're an attorney, and you're pooping in your pants. I'm like, this is whatever. I need people to talk about this. And so we got these glasses that I would wear, for my kids, just because obviously very bald. And for a period of time, I was very embarrassed and I felt really I don't want to go out places because I look weird and no one's going to understand, I'm, toddling along with my 9-month-old and they're going to be like, why does she look like that? So anyway, we just tried to find the funny in all of it. There's always something weird going on at the hospital. There's always something to find to laugh at. And so that was one of my biggest coping strategies. I went a little bananas. And when I say a little, I mean a lot. When I was diagnosed, I don't know if any of you may relate to this, but you go from, okay, I'm trucking along in life, whatever's going on. Like Emalee said, things are going great. I'm really feeling like I'm finding my stride. And then this thing hits you in the face. And it's completely out of your control. And I hated that. I was just like, what? So I went to try to find anything I could that I could control. That was one of my coping strategies. I don't know if it was good or bad. It was just something I did. And I'm just sharing kind of, what I went through. I tried to find
another shower.
I was like, is that a question? But yeah, I started journaling. I did start going to therapy, which I highly recommend. They're at Nebraska Cancer Specialists. Actually, there's a wonderful therapist named Lori Wingerter, who is a survivor herself, who carried me through some of the worst times. So I definitely recommend that. But I also started getting really into like Eastern medicine things and looking at, just really like hippie stuff and whatever, just because for me, if it was something that I could do that made me feel like I had some say in this, I had some control over how I was going to be feeling or what I was going to be doing. That helped for me. Again, it's probably part of my neurotic brain that made me do that. But so I think exploring, I guess, is my point. Explore. There's a lot of resources out there. A Time to Heal is a fantastic one. But there'll be something that works for you that helps you through this time. And then the number one thing, which we've touched on already, is finding other survivors. I mean, I know that I got on Instagram and started searching hashtag small cell ovarian, hashtag SCCOHT, like trying to find another survivor. And I found one other survivor of my particular cancer, which was huge. And then from there, I found a few more, and we started a little group and we're talking. And then obviously Becky and Emalee, but just having people in your corner that kind of understand what you're going through, signing up for things like this, hearing other people's stories was huge for me. So I know that was kind of a ramble, but that is just kind of was my thought process going through it all. And I'm so glad that for any of you that are going through this right now that are on here, like kudos to you for joining this today, because just talking to other people that are your age that understand that this is really, it's different going through it when you're this age. It's way different. And understanding what those differences are and how things feel for us is so important and so big. So that's kind of my thought on that.
Thanks, Taylor. We did have somebody submit a question in the chat box, so if it's okay with you guys, I'll go ahead and read it.
Yeah.
It says that they are a healthcare provider for females with gynecological cancers, cancers. How can we support younger females during cancer is the question. And then she said, it throws everyone off, but when they're younger, there are more concerns such as fertility. Other young people that are not going through cancer are running around and healthy and not going to doctor appointments. So again, the question is, how can we support younger females during cancer, specifically when there are concerns such as fertility?
Yeah. So I think as a provider, especially, just acknowledging the difference and the difficulty. I mean, my gyne onc was Brent Tierney, and he was amazing for a million reasons, but part of it was that he just really acknowledged, like, look, you're young and this is weird and it sucks. And, I'm going to be here and we're going to help you navigate this as best we can, knowing that you have other considerations, talking about those fertility issues. I ended up losing both ovaries. Fertility just became a non-thing for me. But a lot of people want to go through other, procedures and processes to maintain some fertility. But I think just that acknowledgement is a big part of it, because when things go unspoken or unacknowledged, it almost tends to feel shameful. And I know that I felt almost shameful about having this cancer and going through this. And like I said, looking funny at a young age. So the openness and the ability to talk about that with a provider was good. I think the other thing, and obviously I know there's HIPAA and all sorts of reasons why we can't necessarily say, oh, I know this other gal that has this, but any way to try to connect people is huge. I mean, it's just the connection is so big. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Go ahead, and Becky and Emalee.
Emalee, I know you might.
Yeah, obviously I don't have a gynecology, I don't know the right word. I don't have that type of cancer, but fertility was something that we discussed. I cannot tell you how many young survivors that I've met that a doctor did not explain the fertility risk to them. It's amazing to me. It was one of the first things that my doctor had a conversation with me about, which I was blindsided by. I feel so naive about what I understood about cancer. I had no idea it's not talked about. So certainly it's not sexy. It's not something that's discussion when you do see people on Instagram, etc. So honestly, for me, it was having a conversation about it, being open and honest from the get-go. And like, hey, I'm very blunt, I'm very direct, black and white. It was like, hey, this is a really shitty situation. However, here are the solutions. Like, here are your options that you can do to go forward. And for me, that was key. And that is still something that's one of my personal coping mechanisms that I have. Again, just like acknowledging this fertility situation sucks. At my age, it's not something I had thought about. I wasn't ready to have a baby, but I had to think for my future, right, about what my options were. And honestly, it's really hard. I think I went and saw Dr. Macklin and Dr. Gustin. I don't know where they're at in Omaha. But that's who I worked with. And even they're phenomenal doctors. They're wonderful. But that clinic's knowledge of cancer specifically, like brain cancer, for instance, is not something that they probably do on the day-to-day. So they weren't as up to speed. They're specialists of fertility. So I still was able to figure out what I could do. It was really hard. And I think talking to Taylor's point, talking to other people, talking to your doctor and finding that shared community is key. But yeah, that's my advice, is to be open and honest and educate on what the solutions and options are for people. It's a shitty situation. There's just really no way around it. And our best defense is preserving and planning for our future, really. So Becky, anything from you?
I think being on the other end of things, I was done having babies either way. But having kids, being stressed about having these kids at home that I wanted to be able to function and live for. I think all programs have come a long way, I hope. But this being 8 years ago, I wish someone would have, on diagnosis, sent me a child care specialist, sent anybody to help my life. But to kind of like let me know, and I'll talk about it a little later, but like how to explain cancer to my kids, how to stay involved in their lives, how to somehow stay involved in their lives while I was like passed out on the couch all day, and not to have them, their young lives scarred, or for any future have bad experiences through this process. So whoever asked this question was very right. It is very different, because I was trying to figure out, I wasn't of the age where I could not think about bills, or my husband still had to go to work because of health insurance. I was lucky enough that I could take a leave from work, but I'm like, okay, I can't figure out how to deal with these 3 kids and go to treatment. No one from the medical field was like jumping and figuring that out for me. But if there would have been some sort of person to ask questions, I have an amazing friend group and an amazing mom that picked up all the slack for many years. But not everyone has that. And that's the only way I survived, is because of my family. But yeah, send the counselors in, like, upon diagnosis.
Yes.
Well, I know that you and
If I could add something real quick.
Don't just hand them a pediatric book. Don't just hand them a book, which is what I was handed, on how to tell your kids how you have cancer. And because then you just end up crying in the corner.
Yes.
Go ahead, Brenda, sorry.
That's okay. What I was going to let everyone know is we mentioned, as you all know, we're recording this session. We've recorded past sessions, and one of them at our conference in April was how to talk to your kids about if you have cancer. And those are all free and available to you to review. And also we have an amazing resources page with everything from, there's other organizations, we don't do grants, but other organizations do grants to help you out with financial issues, how to talk to your employer. I know you gals will probably get to that as well. It's an important topic, but I just want to remind everybody we have that. Also, after today, if you're interested in connecting with anybody that was here on the webinar today, just send us an email at info@atth.org. And then we could reach out to that person and see if they'd be willing to share an email with you and maybe become friends. So I just wanted to mention that since that seems to be very important.
All three of us are
Alright.
open books. We will meet you for coffee. We will be a
Doable.
Zoom friend or a friend just through email. If you don't want to meet in person, all the things, you can ask us any of the questions. I strangely enough, just real quick, met my sarcoma bestie who I feel like she helped save my life through the weirdest way. So I just want to tell you real quick. My best friend living in Chicago. I'm living here in Omaha. She's a physical therapist as well. And she's sitting at lunch with, 20 other ladies, and they all gossip. And she's telling them about my story or whatever. She had been coming home every weekend to help with the kids or sit with me in the hospital. And some random person was like, hey, your friend's story sounds a lot like my second cousin's friend removed in St. Louis story. And through all that, a 1% cancer, we ended up getting a hold of each other's emails. We both were pregnant when we were diagnosed with synovial sarcoma of the lung, which I don't even know, like our oncologist still doesn't know how that's even possible. But that's where I ended up going to St. Louis because it was a sarcoma center. Met her, we were 6 months apart in our diagnosis, about the same place in our pregnancy. And she was such a lifeline. So like, if you feel comfortable, shout your diagnosis to the rooftops. You never know how a connection is going to happen.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So I was 23 when I was diagnosed and had treatment for lymphoma, and they asked me when they sat me down for my biopsy results if I wanted to freeze my eggs. But then they followed that up with, we need to start chemo next week. And so I knew I didn't have time to waste to freeze my eggs. I guess it's not wasting time, but I was 23. I was about to graduate college. I obviously was well, I'd rather just focus on getting treatment right now. And now that I'm 28, I'm hitting my 5-year mark, but now I'm in a serious relationship. And now I'm starting to worry about fertility and everything like that. Do you guys know of people who have successfully gotten pregnant after having chemo? I guess I'm not super worried about it because I've never had any other issues before. But I guess that is something that I have to be mindful of.
Michaela,
Yeah.
I think about this every single day, and I have the same question. I don't know the answer. I have met other people that have been successful, but they have different types of cancer, right? And so that's really hard personally for me to gauge because we all have different medication, different diagnoses, etc. So I don't know. What I can tell you is I'm hopeful that it will be okay. And I do still think there might be some value in exploring preserving your eggs. I did end up doing 2 rounds of it. I had a little bit of time before I started radiation, and I wasn't very successful either time, which is a bummer. And I do sometimes still think about, now that I'm healthier, going back. They always speak to me about how my eggs are damaged now. So I don't know how valuable that would be, I suppose, in a sense, but I've never explored it, but it's something that I think about a lot, if I'm being honest. The other thing that I was going to share, and Brenda, thank you so much for reminding me, there's a ton of programs available that help support and pay for your fertility treatment. You should reach out to me, Michaela. I remember Livestrong had a really good program, and I think that another one was through Walgreens. And I did 2 rounds, and I don't think I paid a dime for my fertility treatment. And I literally think I just had to have documentation from my oncologist, and I was good to go. So that's also another resource. I think it's for Kat that asked that. There are programs out there, and that's a huge concern, right? The financial aspect of it. But Michaela, I don't know the answer. When you figure it out, you let me know. But that's
I'll be
something
sure
that I
to.
think about a lot. Yeah.
I'll touch on it super quickly. I know we're talking so much, but I know actually several survivors of my particular cancer that have successfully, gotten pregnant, had very healthy babies after treatment. And I just share that because the human body is amazing. And the chemo regimen for this particular cancer is extreme, very, very extreme, as compared to, you know, I don't want to say normal, but like a lot of chemo regimens, you're going to get maybe 2 chemotherapies, maybe 3, and we go through 6 at a time, 6 times. And so knowing that those survivors were able to have healthy pregnancies, healthy children, like there is definitely hope. There are definitely programs out there. So, you know, don't let go of that. If you want to have children, like believe in it. And the human body is amazing and there is hope.
And I think finding a gynecologist, OB-GYN that specializes in, people who have been through cancer before at your age, would be awesome. I don't have a specific name for you, but also I would go and start seeing that gynecologist on a regular basis. Even if getting pregnant's not even on your mind for another 10 years. Like, let's see what tests and things they need to do, knowing your history. And so that you can potentially like put that farther back in your mind or out of your mind completely and go live your lovely romantic life with your boyfriend until you need to need/want to pursue those options.
And that does remind me too, Michaela. I think the general rule of thumb, at least years ago when I did it, is that you really can't get into those fertility specialists until you've been trying for a year. And I was able to I was kind of rude to the receptionist when I talked to them, but if you say, I'm an exception, I've had treatment and I need to go see a professional, or I am an exception to the rule, they were receptive to that, but I had to push quite a bit. So that might be something to think about, but the specialists are available. And I agree with Becky, if you can find someone, again, let me know when you do, but I think that's key. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. We did have somebody in the chat that said that happened to me, and I think they were referencing, Michaela, your comments, and it said that they were able to connect with some other women on Facebook. So kind of like what Brenda said earlier, if there are some people in this room that want to perhaps connect afterwards, we can certainly make those connections if people are comfortable. So reach out to us, reply to any of the emails that we sent out, and we can get you connected. Taylor, are you done with this slide then?
Oh, yes, I am. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Emily, we gave this one to you because your mama was a mama bear.
I know, she's not on, thank God. And actually, I'm going to look up that for the chat. I'm going to look up the name of that fertility program. So can you take the first few minutes of this one, Becky?
Oh, sure. This will maybe take up, I'll kind of answer this in another slide in the same one, since I know we're running behind. I was terrified about my kids. I was terrified of, and I was, even though my husband will never admit it, was burned out because we never had a big break. At the beginning, I was having a tumor pop up every 3 months or so, and then having surgery to remove it and all the things. So I'll just talk a little bit about what we did to help our kids. And I think 8 years into this now, we knew nothing what we were doing, but I think we were successful. So we never promised anything that we knew we couldn't follow through with. So, and I have a friend that unfortunately her husband passed very quickly from diagnosis to passing in like 6 months. And their kids, I know she's comfortable with me saying this, are really struggling because her husband kept saying, I'll be home. I'm going to be fine. This is just a cough. This is just a cold. Cancer treatment's just tough. So honestly, we said, everybody, we have really great doctors. Mom is working really hard to get better. We never promised that I was going to survive this, just because the odds were actually really crappy, A, and B, we didn't want them not to be able to believe. And if I did pass, believe anybody else, think anything else somebody, my husband or my mom, would say in the future. And I think that was the biggest thing. Two biggest things. The second biggest thing was provide consistency for our kids. And that meant a ton of craziness in our family. That meant a ton of responsibility on my mom, my husband's family was all in Michigan, so they weren't super readily available. So really, and my husband, his dream was to continue to climb the corporate ladder. And so we had to figure out however we were going to do this. So we decided that we were going to try to treat life as though I was going to beat this. We were going, if at somewhere along the way, we had to have another discussion between my husband and I, but we weren't going to start having wild vacations. And, we still had to save money for our kids' college and pay car payments and keep the water on and all those things. So my husband went to work, he went to work, and then came every night to sleep with me in the hospital. He would go to work and then come home and have dinner with the kids, go back to the hospital, crazy things like that. But basically we told our kids, you're going to do all of your activities. Someone is going to always love on you. And, we did everything opposite that probably a CPS or a social worker would tell us. We said, if there's a random person that pulls up to the elementary school parking lot, and if you vaguely have seen them before, please get in the car with them. They are going to take you to soccer practice, but you will get there. We totally worked really hard. I worked really hard to expand our small families, and our friends became family. I, in my deepest hour, had planned my funeral, but I also had planned a person or several people to be my kid's person, should I pass. And I started developing those relationships early on when I thought, hey, I might beat this, but there are going to be a lot of activities that I have to get treatment I'm going to miss, or I'm going to sleep through because I did a big activity the day before. So my oldest is into triathlons. My best friend does triathlons with them. My middle is sassy, and my best friend who's sassy is, they get along. So we kept a routine. My kids are amazing at sleepovers. Like my 11-year-old still has a friend that won't do sleepovers. My youngest, since he was 3, just gets in a car and says, hey, like, what are we going to go do fun? But they started to get to the point where I would get re-diagnosed and they'd say, well, hey, who are we staying with? We one time dropped our kids off at our good friend's house, like literally just friends, not family. We said, we'll be back in 48 hours. I went from here and then had to go down to St. Louis, and we picked him up 2 weeks later. Barely talked to him, didn't anything, but like, again, our network of friends were so amazing that they didn't entirely miss it. I mean, I missed them more than they missed me. So those are the big coping mechanisms that we did with our kids. And give your caregiver a break. Like Eric would never have said, yeah, I need to go have a beer with my friends. But occasionally you have to kick them out for a half an hour. Say, I have my good friend Nikki coming over to sit with me at the hospital. She's bringing me a smoothie. I've had my pain meds. I'm good for 3 hours. Go take a shower, eat dinner, sleep for a half hour, and say hi to a friend. Like, you need to see the outdoor space beyond cancer, or they're never going to make it. I mean, they have to hold you up and everyone else, and keep their life going. It's sometimes harder than for us. Sorry, Emily, go ahead.
My mom is like stage 5 clinger, and I'm so glad that she's not on this call. I was going to remind her, and I purposely chose not to, hoping she wouldn't be here, because I do want to be honest and open. And, sometimes as a parent, I imagine those things are hard to hear. Just very briefly, I think the biggest struggle that I had with my family, I can't speak for what was difficult for them, but like, I needed my independence. I'd worked so hard. I was living on my own. I was freshly married. Like, I was an adult, and I think it was really hard. My situation was complicated for a lot of different reasons, just to say that. But I think it was really hard because your parents often serve as your primary caregivers, right? They're sweeping in, they're helping you navigate all these really difficult things, and you're their child again, and you rely on them for a lot of things. My mom was helping me take showers again. My dad was sitting down, going through my finances and figuring out how to pay my bills. And that was really, it was so hard. I can't tell you how many tears or like how many screaming fights we have with each other, and everybody's heart was in the right place. But I just felt like a child, and I didn't like that. You know, I was a grown ass woman. I had a life to live, and it's taken a long time. And I think it took a long time for us to understand each other, because I didn't want to seem ungrateful. You know, I couldn't have done it without them. That's really the bottom line. And in the event that something happens again, they probably will step into that role again. Unfortunately, I think that's just I don't know, as a young survivor, I think that's just part of it. And my parents are very young, and I'm really grateful. The other part you can see in this picture is I have a little brother, and this was also really hard. Alex had just come back from deployment, like maybe a few weeks after I was diagnosed, and he actually moved in with me. There were some logistics in, my parents are from Kearney, and I lived in Omaha. And so my brother actually moved in with me, my little brother, right after deployment, because I couldn't drive in Nebraska. You're not allowed to drive for, I think, 3 months after a seizure. And I had to go to appointments. I had to be on my 24-hour watch for a long time after my craniotomy. And that's so hard because I'm the older sister, right? Again, I'm supposed to be in charge. I'm supposed to be providing guidance and support for him. And that was really hard. The other thing, and Becky kind of alluded to this, and we've chatted about this, as part of it is when your world is spinning out of control, and Taylor too, actually, the best thing that I felt that I could do was control something. Whatever that was, that's what made me feel like I had power in the situation. So even more than the independence, if I could take a shower myself, if I could do my hair myself, if I could walk down the street and get coffee myself, like that, I don't know, that made me feel empowered. That made me feel like I was in control of something. And that was really important for me and my discovery, I guess, moving forward. And again, it was really hard for my parents. It's still really hard. You know, I moved thousands of miles away from them, which sounds terrible, but it's been one of the best experiences for my healing journey personally. I think I needed my space and my autonomy to feel like I was back in control again, and then I was growing and becoming healthy and standing on my 2 feet. And for me personally, that's been really rewarding. But I know we are like so close to time, I know, and we have other slides, but certainly the point of this conversation was for you guys to be the driver. So if there are other questions, I think I see some more stuff in the chat. Please let us know what you want to talk about, what you don't want to talk about. This time is yours.
Thanks, Emalee. We did had somebody reference the child life specialist. I know, Becky, you referenced wanting that day one, and they just said, and most medical centers and hospitals have them. So if you do have children and you're working through a diagnosis, they help have those conversations or give you some resources to do so.
They don't automatically, she's right. They don't automatically come. It took me a couple of years to realize that. They are there a lot of times for kids that have been diagnosed. And if you don't know, to ask. So yeah, spread the word, ask, tell your friends to ask who are involved in treatment.
Exactly. So I actually was studying to be a child life specialist. And so that's how I know, because I'm also a childhood cancer survivor. And so, but yeah, I didn't realize you had to ask for it. So I thought that was interesting because yeah, you're right. They're mainly there for the children. So.
I think that's kind of a good segue into one of the points that I think, you know, we all wanted to talk about a little bit today was that, don't like, you have to push for your own health, for your own needs, for your own survival. You know, not that I was ever a super shy person, but I really learned to like, I'm going to ask anyone, anything, if I think I need it, if I think it'll help. Like I went to an herbalist. And so I was like, hey, oncologist, can I do herbalist stuff? You know, I mean, you don't be afraid to ask for anything. If you're struggling with whatever it is, tell somebody. If you don't get the answer you want, ask somebody else, ask again, like be annoying, be frustrating, be all of those things, because you're going to have your support team. You're going to have your friends and your caregivers and your providers. But you are your own best advocate and you know yourself the best. So yeah, for anything that's out there, just don't ever be afraid to say, hey, I need some help in this area. I don't know if anything exists, but can somebody help me? That's kind of how I stumbled my way into a lot of the things that I found to be really beneficial. So.
I just want to take this new normal question.
Yeah, I'll just ask the question in case somebody can't see.
Oh,
the
sorry,
chat.
sure.
No, but thanks, Becky, for pointing that out. So the question is pertaining to a new normal. How do you get people to understand the old you may be gone or at least different? Did any of you have a ceremony to honor the new you? Did you document your journey through art, writing, or photos?
So way to be advanced, you're way advanced than Taylor, Emalee, or I were. We all thought that we were going to be done with treatment and go back to perfectly normal. And so good for you. That was a complete not truth at all.
Yeah, we need
Taylor,
to normalize. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we need to normalize that journey. Taylor and I hopped back into work. We hopped into all the activities. We overcommitted. Then we overcommitted and canceled with friends and things when you realize you can't get out of bed just because you overdid it. And then friends would think, so I had two things. And one of my besties from elementary school I saw is on here, and she could also attest to this. Two things happened. Either I lost friends, not from my close community, but friends that wanted to reach out, but had no idea what to say. And so they just didn't say anything. And that was really tough because a year later or so, they'd run into you in the grocery store and they're like, ooh, I had no idea your situation was so shitty. And I thought they were just being kind of a-holes. Or B, I had friends that didn't understand, hey, I wanted to be involved in all of these things, but the new real me can only really do one outside activity a day. I can fake it really well for about 48 hours. And then you're going to see me hit my wall and I'm going to be in bed for the next 15. I do all the things. I do fake eyelashes, hair extensions, I do the self tanner, all the things to make me, it's all for me, make me not think every time I walk by a mirror, think about cancer. But in some extent, I think all of that tells people that I'm back to my normal, jovial, outgoing, running 110% all the time. So I finally, like with most of my friends who either A, figured it out, or B, just had a conversation with them, like on a outing or a dinner or whatever, and said, hey, like, this is not me being a brat. Like, I'm super conversational for the first 45 minutes. And then I'm silent because I'm trying to push through the exhaustion. I want to be there. I want to be involved in my friend group. I might not be as engaged because my brain is done working. So I love all those ideas, parties, everything, but journals, writing, part of the reason why we started this blog was that, but yeah, just let them know because they have no idea. Your friends are mostly 30-year-old healthy, they're still going on with their lives. And you're just trying to fake it till you make it. Yeah. And sometimes faking it till you make it comes across
like you're actually making it.
Like you're actually making it. There you go.
Like you don't, because yeah, as Becky mentioned, I did the same thing. I was like, Little Miss Inspirational, look at me, I'm going back to work. Where like, I remember I was still bald and I flew to a conference in Denver and it was crazy. It's insane. I look back on it. I'm like, what was I doing? And now I am, and it's a process, whatever you do and however you get through this journey is right? You can't do this wrong. You can, whatever works for you. But having gone through the process and looking back now, I'm so much more open now. Like I went back to work and then I quit because it was burning me out. I wasn't gaining weight. I wasn't gaining energy back. Nothing was happening. And now I'm so much more open about that. I'm like, you guys, I need a nap. You guys, I can't go to that thing because I have to reserve my energy for this. You guys, I am never going to be old Taylor. She's gone. New Taylor is fabulous as well, but she's different. And so I think the sooner you can ease into that, into that openness and whatever outlet it may be. I saw someone did a Facebook group to share their story. I know I started sharing more on like my Instagram page about like, this is really tough today. And the mental health part of it too, I think is important to acknowledge. You know, I finally started sharing like, look, I still have panic attacks. I still cry myself to sleep sometimes. I couldn't go to the med center for like a year to get my checkups for my stem cell because just the smell of the building set me off into things. And so the more open and with people that you can be about it, the more understanding you get, and then it just kind of rolls into a much better place. So that's
I
my
would
two
also like to quickly say that you have to come to the point where you understand that first, though.
Yeah.
I was probably 2 years ish ahead of my experience than Taylor, and I had gone back to work and failed like 3 times. But there's no way in hell that I was telling Taylor that it wasn't a good idea to go back to being a full-time lawyer a month after she was done with treatment. Like, I had been through it, but you have to experience it yourself. And so that was some of the difficulty with my friend group and my family group, because at the beginning I was giving tons of mixed messages. I'm fine, I'm great, I'm done with chemo. And then, oh wait, loud noises put me off because it hurts my brain. I can't actually even go to a movie because it's too loud and it makes my brain work too hard.
Yeah.
Crazy. I know that we are running out of time, but I did want maybe Taylor and Emalee to touch on like work-related issues, since we've kind of glossed over other things, but that is something that was super stressful for all of us. So if anybody had any specific questions about that, or if Taylor or Emalee wanted to touch anything.
I saw a couple of the chats that I wanted to touch on really quick. So Michaela, yes, I struggled severely after treatment. I'm 5 years out and I'm still not anywhere back to like what I would feel is fully functional, strong, whatever. There's ongoing issues, and that's just a reality. And I like my hair still real thin. I still wear my wigs. It's just, there's stuff that's going to stick with you. And again, like just being open about that and trying to, find tools and stuff to deal with it is really all you can do. And then also, yes, there are a ton of different resources out there for financial support. I think one big thing that I only knew because of Becky was Social Security is like there is a list of specific cancers that if you have one of those, you immediately get on disability. But if you can't work, there is no shame in getting on Social Security disability. I was on it. I know Becky was on it.
And I am too. I'm on my diagnosis is on a compassionate care list of this Social Security disability. And I'm, for the longest time, was so embarrassed because my husband has a good job and we were financially okay, but we were still like pulling money out of savings for thousands and thousands of dollars of cancer every year. And it is money that you earned at a job. You're not taking away from the people of the United States. It's something that you would have gotten at age 65 or whatever. You're just getting it on an earlier time frame. It also, I never knew this. Even if you think you're going to beat this, if you are disabled and not currently working and on that compassionate care list, I would definitely get on it, because it's much easier for your children to get their benefits should you pass. And then they get benefits until their 19th birthday. And I always thought that was, how did they not tell you that? Like, I ran into somebody waiting rooms, oncology waiting rooms is, go talk to people. It's where you can find all of your information. The other people that are bored sitting for 3 hours because they're oncologist is so far behind, but chat them up. They're the ones with your diagnosis. And probably know your specific cancer resources the best.
And one other thing there's so much about Social Security that I did not know that I have learned through the process, but I was on disability up until 2 months ago when I'm working again now, but you can also be on Social Security disability and then say you want to try to go back to work. There's a 9-month period where it's like a trial work period or something like that, where you can go and try to work again. And if it doesn't work, you can just automatically get those benefits back. You don't have to go through the process. So, for me, that's kind of a backstop right now. I know I'm trying to be back at work, but if it doesn't work, if I start, declining again and stuff, I know that I have that as a backup. So the sooner you can get moving on that type of stuff, the better. And then, yeah, once you have it, just don't be ashamed. I was ashamed for so long too, like, oh my God, how embarrassing, but you need it. This is crappy. This sucks. So,
It's not
take
fair
the
that all of
benefits.
your
Yeah.
savings should go to pay your CT scan instead of your college.
Yeah.
And don't forget, if any of you are working, you probably have a long-term or short-term disability
Yeah.
policy with your employer. So you need to, that's gold. I used that for many years. And even after I was fired, I was still, I was the owner of the policy. So I was actually still covered for months. So highly recommend that you look into that, because that's also an option. But
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the Social Security process can be really quick if you're on the compassionate care list. If you're not, it's a little bit longer process and a little bit more involved. To that end, make sure there are certain things that can help you get it. So make sure you're being super, super honest with your providers and your work about what you are experiencing, because there needs to be documentation of, what's going on for you that's inhibiting you from working. And if at work, again, it can be embarrassing, but if you're struggling with something, ask for accommodations. You're entitled to accommodations to help you work because you're considered disabled once you have cancer. You want to ask for those things, A, for the documentation, and B, because you're entitled to them. If you need an alternate work schedule or something like that, they have to go through what's called the interactive process with you to figure that out. So again, I guess one of the big points here is be vocal about what you're going through, what you're experiencing, be open and honest, because it's only going to help you in the long run.
And I did that all wrong too. Again, 8 years ago, not knowing anything. I got dressed up for every doctor's appointment. My husband got dressed up. I was perky and happy because I wanted to be given treatment. If you look too sick, or if your counts are too crappy or you're too skinny, they're like, oh no, we can't give you the chemo that's only been tested on rats. And I wanted to look strong and healthy. And so I was like, oh, I'm great. And real quickly touching on Michaela's question, I also had no idea about how overstimulation, because of my multiple chemos and radiation and all the things, would be, I had no clue. So my husband and I would try for a date and we'd go to a movie and I'd take my pillow and my blankets and we'd hold hands and we'd watch the movie. And I had the biggest headache and was exhausted afterwards. It took me forever to realize, how does that make sense? Or, we had 3 kids at home and we were living with my mom, and I could not have 3 kids talking and the TV on the background, like a football game, and be trying to make dinner. I couldn't do it. And I'd be in a ball on the floor. And I'm like, what is wrong? I'm just kind of standing here cutting vegetables. And if I would have my husband turn the TV off and send a kid to a different room so there wasn't fighting, I could get through it. But it is such a thing.
Ladies, you are all so fabulous. And I think Emalee wrote something in the chat that I was thinking myself. I think there definitely needs to be a part 2 to this. There's so many questions, there's so much interaction. And if you all that are attending today, if you would like to see or hear a part 2, let us know. But I think we're just going to go ahead and schedule that.
Yeah.
If we can. I know the 3 of you are very, very busy, but I hope you're up for it.
Absolutely.
And
we're open. This was our whole goal in life, is to feel like we gave something back.
Good.
And this experience was not for nothing.
Exactly. So I think I know Kelly would be delighted to work with you going forward on aligning a date and a time to do that. The other thing I wanted to mention along those lines, someone I saw in the chat said something about brain fog. A Time to Heal for the past year has been working on a brand new curriculum for our brain fog program. We used to use a program based out of Canada. We have now written our own program. It is done. And now it's in the final process of all the attorney things, the copyrights and licensing and all of that. But we are hoping to have that start next month for those who are struggling with brain fog issues. And also just another reminder, we are here, A Time to Heal is here for emotional support. For it doesn't matter how far you are out from your journey. You could be 2 days from your last treatment, or 2 years, or 10 years. We are here to help you. And I agree. I'm 5 years out and I still have panic attacks every now and then. I went to get my COVID shot and the smell just took me right back. So we are here for you. We have strategies and tools to give you to deal with those kinds of things. So sorry to interrupt, but yes, I do think we should have a part 2. Thank you all so much. Kelly, take it away.
Kelly, 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have to do my plug for the 3 of us. We have an Instagram site called @loveblack.blackbird, and which leads us to our blog, which we've kind of journaled all of our stories and all of our real life updates. If you want to hear how Taylor stayed passionate during her cancer journey with her hubby, please check that
There's
out.
some good stories.
We throw a party with every actual additional Instagram follower we get. Like, we're at like 147. Woohoo! Like, please just go follow us. Tell your friends that are potentially going through the journey or just want to support you better through your journey. We just wanted to do that one little plug. If you follow us, we will throw a little party for you.
Thanks, Becky. And yeah, this has been just such a wonderful conversation. Definitely a follow-up for part 2, so stay tuned. There's been a lot of resources shared today. So this week I will follow up and with an email, and I'll include the slides with the, so you can have them. I'll include some of the links to some of the things that we talked about, the emails that you can just click on it. It's easy access. And then if you guys have things that you want to see talked about in a part 2 or in a different, webinar, feel free to reach out anytime. We really appreciate you guys all for coming. Like I said, this is recorded, so if you want to go back and listen to any of it, if you didn't catch anything, feel free to do so. That link will be sent out this week as well.
Yes, we have little stickers. So whoever asked about that, email me and I will drop them off to your hospital. Talk soon. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.